I have many members of the Association of Christian Teachers whose views seem to be prohibited, even if they express those views in a moderate or in a restrained manner within a balanced framework.
Lizzie Harewood, it's such a privilege to talk to you again. You are, of course, the Executive Officer of the Association of Christian Teachers. Let me jump in very quickly and say, of course, our supporters come from all faiths and none. I'm a Christian, my board a Christian, but we have many atheists who join us in believing that man-woman marriage is special and worthy of defence. Two things I want to talk to you about today, if that's okay. Lizzie, one example where you were booted out of a conference because of your beliefs around marriage. You weren't able to speak at the conference. And secondly, and as importantly, is your use of something called a subject access request that I want to tell people about simply because it's a very useful tool. You used it in order to find out what the real reason you were booted for and not the one that they gave you, which was papering over the cracks, if you like. Now, before we go any further, just do me a favour and say hello to our listeners and our watchers so they can hear your voice.
Hello, it's lovely to be here with you.
We approach the defence of man-woman marriage from absolutely a secular evidence base. And so do you, Lizzie, and that's got you into trouble again. Do you want to just very briefly tell us what's happened and what's occurred recently?
So there was an incident related to a conference that landed me, I shouldn't say it landed me in trouble, because in actual fact, I wasn't in any trouble whatsoever, but it created a bit of an incident which raised quite a lot of questions about transparency in terms of impartiality in discussions of sensitive subjects and discussion of things like marriage, a traditional or a Christian view of marriage. So I was invited by an organisation to contribute to a conference, in particular, roundtable discussion on religious and cultural sensitivities when planning and teaching RSHE, so relationship, sex and health education. It was intended to be a platform for different perspectives, for diverse perspectives, and was intended to provide a space for dialogue about the development and delivery of RSHE and taking into consideration religious and cultural sensitivities. So I accepted this invitation, only then later on to have that invitation rescinded when it was understood that my inclusion was causing some problems because of my views, in particular on marriage and on other issues to do with sexuality as well, or should I say my Christian views in particular.
And what's very interesting is that as far as I understand from looking at the documentation, it went through multiple layers. First, you seem to have been excluded because another participant refused to come if you were there. And then that turned into, oh, no, we've cancelled the whole event or that round table part of the discussion. So it's not because you're you or it's not because they're them. It's just because we felt that bit wasn't necessary for the conference. Is that correct?
There was quite a lot of trying to dig down and understand exactly why the initial iteration was cancelled. But I certainly know that I was removed because of the dissatisfaction of my religious perspective and the potential clash of ideologies. And the Christian perspective was obviously deemed to be not as worthy of platforming. But then I think after some of the higher echelons of the organisation discovered what had happened, I think they tried to backtrack and cancel that part of the conference. And then I think perhaps they realised that this had snowballed a bit and they cancelled the conference altogether, put it back to another date, realised that actually it's really difficult. You need to be really, really careful about impartiality and providing room for a plurality of perspectives on this issue. And as we all know, I'm sure many of your listeners will be seeing on the news updated guidance on things like RSHE. It's not actually that difficult to get it right, but it has become so difficult to get right once it becomes politicized.
And again, it seems from the correspondence, a lot of it is redacted, that in fact there was a ranking of priorities in terms of equality legislation, where others' priorities were ranked above your right to believe what you believe as a
Yeah.
Christian, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to have led to your exclusion, as it would appear from the correspondence.
Absolutely. So it was communicated to me that that my presence there, talking about religious and cultural sensitivities, could lead to ideological conflicts, and there was a reluctance to be associated with me representing the Association of Christian Teachers, um, given our religious stance on LGBT issues.
Even though the organisation itself that was running this conference, and all over their website is the idea that they include everyone. They want all opinions to be put forward. They want an open and an honest discussion of all the situations and everyone's feelings, so we can get things on the table and go forward together. Yet, actually, it appears that's not entirely the case.
Absolutely, and I must say that I did try to go the extra mile in assuring the conference organisers that I had no intention of turning this into any confrontation or battle of ideologies. But I genuinely wanted to offer valuable insights. What Christians believe, what might the Christian families in schools, or the Christian teachers in schools, what might be their deeply held beliefs on marriage, on gender and gender identity, um, and why do we need to be sensitive to those beliefs and be respectful? Why can't we also give those perspectives a place at the table alongside some of the more progressive ideologies?
And dare I say, I'm a Christian, our board of Christians, but there are an awful lot of ordinary people who actually would agree and say, well, yeah, we kind of think man-woman marriage is the way to go, and we shouldn't be promoting really other stuff unless we absolutely have to. And, we other people might have other opinions, and essentially the requirement of a school is to do all things in balance, and to talk about what's best for kids, etc., etc. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is very, very interesting, because of course you wouldn't have known any of this going on in the background had you not used a wonderful tool that people should know about called a subject access request. And neither you or I are lawyers, Lizzie, so we're not giving any legal advice, but there is a mechanism under the Data Protection Act, all regulated by the General Data Protection Regulations, etc., which enables anybody, you or me or anybody listening, to write to an organisation that holds data on them, or that they believe holds data on them, and to say, well, I would like the data that you hold, please. And what alerted you to use that in this instance and find out the detail of what was actually going on?
Because my kind of radar went ding, 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 I thought, it seems that there's more going on behind the scenes here. So I spoke to some friends actually who are legal bods and who are sort of specialists in this area. So they advised me to do a subject access request. And although it sounds very technical, requesting my data, all that means is requesting any information they have about me, that they might have used my name, they might have emailed someone else about me or about the association I work for, with reference to me, basically just wanting to know what they've said about me. It sounds a little bit, sounds like I might be a bit paranoid, but I thought in this case it might be quite a legitimate request. And of course it was.
It was incredibly revealing, wasn't it, in terms of the internal emails that had gone backwards and forwards, which painted a very explicit story of you being excluded because somebody from another organisation, which many people might be able to guess, but we won't name here, said they weren't going to come if you were going to come, and so you were taken off the table. And that's something quite remarkable. But this subject access request is a really powerful tool. A, anybody can use it. B, any organisation that holds data is bound under it. And C, it can even go as far as including messages held on private phones of employees of organisations that pertain to you or pertain to your request. And so it's very important. I would urge people in any kind of similar situation, just a quick Google search will tell you how to write a very simple, easy subject access request and get that information and find out what's going on.
Yeah, and I did that twice, because the first time I made a request to one party involved, and there was some information that was still not being revealed, which I think they possibly could have revealed to me. So I then did a further subject access request to another party involved, and then that kind of managed to substantiate what was really going on, and gave me much of a fuller picture.
So, I mean, where does it go from here? So the conference hasn't hasn't been held yet. Is it going to be? They've said to you they'd like to include you in a future events. Softening. Where does it go? Are you taking it anywhere? What's going on?
They've intimated that they would love me to be involved. I did get, I must say, from the CEO of the organisation, she apologised profusely, and did say that she'd love to see me at this conference and invited me to take part in a future conference. I've not yet received that invitation. And in terms of taking it any further, I'm not planning to kind of take this any further legally. However, I would certainly like people to know about this kind of
Yep.
thing. But I think
Yep.
that this is really the thin end of the wedge. Things like this happen
Yeah.
all the time.
All the time.
And I have many members of the Association of Christian Teachers whose views seem to be prohibited, even if they express those views in a moderate or in a restrained manner within a balanced framework. So I'm in the privileged position where I don't need to fear losing my job because I'm employed by the charity. But it just speaks to that wider problem. Although I feel that we are turning a bit of a corner. I think we still need to be well aware that traditional values, traditional views, biblical views, or just traditional family views, are they not permitted a place at the table alongside any other ideologies? Of course, according to statutory provision, yes. But we need to be aware and alive to those circumstances where they're not. And I do believe it is our duty to press.
And it's not only people being, not included in conference discussions, but actually some people won't be interviewed for jobs or shortlisted because people know what they believe and feel it's too risky to have in their organisation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Ridiculous. Absolutely. Well, Lizzie, thank you so much for standing up. Thank you for highlighting that issue of a subject access request. And I hope a lot of our listeners and viewers will go ahead and use it and do exactly what you've done and hold people to account. Lizzie Harewood, thanks for your time.
Oh, thank you for having me, Tony.